for a discussion about Clarissa's Battle, a film about parent organizing in action, sponsored by ECFC, Media Impact Funders, and the Raising Childcare Fund. You are in the right place. Please go ahead and introduce yourselves, your name, and where you represent. And perhaps if you found out about this through Media Impact Funders or through the Early Childhood Funders Collaborative or the Raising Childcare Fund, we would love to have that information if you go ahead and put that in the chat. And we'll get started in a second. Okay. So we are so glad to have you all here today. My name is Rachel Schumacher. I am the project director for the Raising Childcare Fund, and I'm going to serve as moderator here. I have the great pleasure of being the project director for this project that is a project of the Early Childhood Funders Collaborative for the last few years. We got launched in 2019, and because we know we have people from multiple backgrounds, I am going to just provide a little bit of background about ECFC for those of you who are here from Media Impact Funders, and then turn it over to our co-sponsor and have Roshni say a few words. So ECFC provides a venue for funders who are interested in early childhood, wanting to learn, share, and explore, maximize effective philanthropy practices. And we have been since 2019. Our journey has included a pooled fund called the Raising Childcare Fund, which has become sort of like an equity laboratory for our work. At the same time, we launched the Race Equity Committee, and that has been and the two have been working together over this time and wanting and sharing lessons learned and really finding that there is a lot to be learned for philanthropic principles and how we work with our grantee partners and how we center the voices of parents and early educators and providers in their work to try to transform and improve the early childhood system. And so we are very excited as part of our work to implement trust-based philanthropy and partner as a philanthropic partner with the childcare and early childhood movement to transform childcare in this country, to partner with Clarissa Duthard and the movement leaders and encourage conversations among funders and parent organizers around the country to really build support and momentum for this amazing movement, which has really become front and center in a lot of newspapers and in our public policy conversations, unfortunately through the tragedy of the COVID-19 pandemic over the past few years. But there is a lot to be hopeful and positive about in our future, especially when you have amazing organizers like Clarissa. So you have, just a reminder, if you haven't had a chance to screen the documentary, you will have a link that you can use. You do have a link that you can use through December 6th. This event has been designed to include some snippets and some background on what the documentary is about, so that if you haven't had a chance, no worries, we've got your back. We have a lovely summary of what you would see, and we do encourage you to go and watch that full documentary after this panel. So our panel is co-sponsored by Media Impact Funders, and Roshni Melia is here, so we'd love to give you a chance to do your welcome, Roshni. Thank you so much for being a partner.
Thanks. Hello, everyone, and thank you, Rachel. As Rachel mentioned, I am Roshni Melia. I'm a longtime program consultant with Media Impact Funders. And for those of you that are unfamiliar with our organization, we too are a philanthropic serving organization just like ECFC, but we organize our funder members and our work around media in the public interest, which can range from, but obviously not limited to journalism, narrative change, documentary films, social media, media literacy, basically anything in the media space. And we're grateful to ECFC for inviting us to co-sponsor this session because we, along with our funders, see the value and impact that documentary films can have on transforming communities and improving societies. So because documentary filmmaking is a medium in which stories are told to not only inform, but often have the ability to change hearts and minds, it serves as a powerful grant-making strategy to advance your programmatic or philanthropic goals. You know, many of your peers support doc films through their own program strategies, whether it be education, climate, gun reform, healthcare, immigration issues, you name it, there's a doc film about it. So if you have questions about this approach or are interested in connecting with some of those peers, feel free to reach out to our team. And now I'm going to turn it back to Rachel. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you, Roshni. I totally agree with you. And I think so the Raising Childcare Fund's goal is to support grassroots organizing around the country so that folks can lift voices, build power, and expand equity in our currently pretty unequitable childcare and early childhood systems. And one of the things that we would also love to talk to anyone who wants to learn more about that, you will have an opportunity to fill out a form as you exit to tell us what you might want to learn more about. So let's, without any further ado, turn things to our documentary, which is an incredibly powerful piece around the parent organizing that Clarissa Duthard, who's here today, and the ED, Executive Director of Parent Voices Oakland, is here to be on our panel. Tamara Perkins, who is the producer and director of the film, is here on our panel, and Amy Fitzgerald, who is representing the philanthropic community of East Bay Community Foundation that was a trust-based and great partner to Clarissa through this project. So before we're going to hear from the panel, we're going to run, and we're all going to go like this right now. We're going to run a PowerPoint that gives you the background about the challenges that Clarissa took on and what happened in the Alameda County community, and including some snippets. So everyone, 3 wishes of success, and Rena is going to start the PowerPoint.
It is time for a change, y'all. I'm tired of being tired, of being tired, of being tired. I am sick of being tired. 7 years ago, I lost my child care subsidy and watched budget cuts at the state level, close down child care centers and preschools so that our children didn't have that start. I watched people take second mortgages so that they could help families when our state didn't do its job. No matter where your zip code is, no matter what school you sign up to, every single child deserves to have the same quality education. Yes. It is time for a So we get to celebrate this sweet moment. And again, you know, this is the culmination of 2 years, 5 years of talking about the waiting list and 2 years actively advocating in that room on the 5th floor we said we have to fight for childcare and housing. Through the last 2 years of, like I said, going up there not knowing what meeting, y'all don't even know. Y'all do not even know. We had no, like we were trying to get on agendas, trying to go to the right committee, trying to figure out how this process works. It is not very community friendly, and we are blazing trails and creating pathways so that that changes. We are the pulse, we are the heartbeat of the community because we are there in the community. We know what's happening. You know, let's celebrate, but y'all, we have so much work to do. Like, this is the very, very beginning of us loving on each other in conscious, beautiful struggle. So we'll see y'all in the campaign office. We're just getting set up, okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. I'll be very brief because we got to walk. This is a really huge moment. We are 30 days out from June 5th. We are 30 days from wrapping this up and winning childcare for everybody. And I just really want to appreciate all of us as a community coming together and really proving that when we build from the ground up, from the grassroots up, when we include seniors, when we include monolingual Spanish speakers, when we include everybody from the community to come and campaign and fight for justice for our children, then that's how we win. This moment is so exciting because right now we're going to help some of those 33 children that are living in cars right now in Oakland. We are going to help the 6,400 families that are on the waiting list. The time is now to support those families and give them the much needed relief and support that they deserve. So thank you so much. I also want to give a shout out to, again, so my son, I don't know where he went. He's been in this fight with me. Come on. He's been, no, okay. He's been in this fight with me, some of you know, since he was 3 years old. Every single door is a knock for justice. Thank you.
Okay, so technical challenges aside, we hope that gives you a sense of the length of time. First of all, you notice from that timeline, this was a 10-year-long process that included a lot of challenges, bumps in the road. You had to go to the ballot twice to get this to happen. This was an incredibly challenging process that resulted in transformational change really for the county and has inspired work around the country. I would say at the last slide said there were hundreds of parents like you around the country. I think it's more like thousands at this point who are organizing and our peers in this battle. So thank you so much for being here. Every time I see this film, it gives me hope for the future and for the potential of organizing to build a real transformational movement. Clarissa, thank you for doing this documentary and thank you for coming on this panel. We'd love to just start with you and hear why it was so important for you to take on this work of organizing, but also why you were willing to do the documentary. It's personal and it was also for the larger good in society, and you really put yourself on the line. So please share with us your point of view.
So first of all, thank you so much for having me. Thank you for thank you to the EC Funders Network for organizing this virtual screening and also opportunities to share the film. And you know, I want to say something that's a little cheesy but very true that I've been thinking about in that I did not set out to become an organizer. I think I've been doing social change work for the better part of 20 years, working on different issues, interpersonal violence, mostly women's issues, interpersonal violence, prison reform for women prisoners. But the most, I think, you know, I had a child. I really struggled to make a life that was stable and supportive of my child's development, and it made no sense that was the case. And so, organizing in this way chose me. I really didn't choose it. And it's similar with the film. The film, I think this opportunity opened up with this amazing filmmaker who was also living through the experience of struggling with childcare, and we're both solo parents and raising little children. And so every step, so I didn't wake up and say, oh, I'm going to organize and be a part of a movement. I really was putting one foot in front of the other and meeting one parent after another parent and hearing the same story and understanding that my struggle was shared. And then that really led to wanting to build power with other families. And this organization, Parent Voices Oakland, was a way to do that. And then I'll just say that, recognizing care work, child care, elder care, end of life care, the people who, in my opinion, are so much of the backbone of our society, and seeing the way that this labor is not recognized and supported. And though we depend on it, we rely on it, we depend on it. And it's critical to a thriving, not just a thriving economy, but a healthy society that cares for everyone and is realizing this dream of equity. To see that work undervalued and under-resourced, and the things that people have to do in response to systems not holding them up and really fully resourcing them has motivated me tremendously. And to know that this work often falls on the shoulders of Black and brown women, and also not just falls on the shoulders, but Black and brown women across, and immigrant communities across our country willingly, lovingly, willingly, lovingly engage and participate in this work, and continuously are asked more. We're asking more and more of them. To see that, I think, is such a deep inequity that we can fix, we can solve it. This is something that in our lifetime we can correct. So, yeah.
Thank you. I also wonder, you mentioned that you had a partner in this who shared similar experiences, and that really helped bring just the quality of the story and made it something that you trusted to work with. So that's you. How would you like to, what would you say about when you met Clarissa and how you got together to start doing this film and knew it was the right project?
Well, when Clarissa and I met, I was at my most vulnerable. I had just been thrown off that economic cliff of losing a job at almost 9 months pregnant after thinking I had everything planned. And honestly, I was just blown away by Clarissa. I was, we connected probably just as moms and as women first. And otherwise, I don't know that she would have gone on this journey with me. But yeah, I think that, so when Clarissa was talking, a couple of things that came up for me were these ideas that we talked about in the beginning, where there's a lot of thoughts about who deserves family, and then the deep shame that you contend with through all of these systems of the safety nets, right? So I think together, you know, first of all, I was really grateful for Clarissa because she told me about the waiting list and I was able to get on it and get a subsidy. And that subsidy helped me stabilize enough so that I felt like, okay, I have this skill. I've been making films for 20 years. This is something I think we can do together. You know, I didn't want to do it by myself. I didn't come in with an idea about how to tell the story, but we sat down for an hour and a Pete's coffee and talked about it and came up with an initial idea about what we would document and how we would do it together. And that was really the beginning of it. But some of the things that we thought were really important, and I think helped make the film what it is, which is, and what Clarissa was talking about, centering power, centering community power, centering women of color in power through this story. And it was helpful that we were working on it. Like, it was a co-creation project from the beginning, but also the creative team, you know, were almost all women, mothers, parents. So we came in, we all had sort of a stake in telling, you know, a meaningful, authentic story that showed what was possible. And I think those were a really big deal. And the one other thing I would say is that there was a big push to focus on the children. And I think that maybe one of the things that Clarissa and I talked about together, and one of the things that we realized, is how important it is to tell this story about, like, just the power of organizing. And the children are there, and, you know, it is about the children. It's about also the parents. It's about the teachers, you know, and we wanted to tell something that was holistic and, again, centered, you know, around building power and showing what's possible, so that it could be educational for those who are not in it, but it could also be inspirational and supportive and show another pathway for those who are in it, whether you are organizing as in childcare, or, you know, the next generation organizing in the a myriad of issues that need to be addressed. So
Yeah, thank you.
Grateful is where I'm at right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, there's something that really comes through in this. I mean, it obviously took a long time. You probably didn't, when you started this project, think we're going to be doing this for multiple years and having to go to the ballot twice. But there's also the other thing that really comes through in this, besides the time, is the labor, the emotional labor that it really takes, and how much work, Clarissa, you really let people in this story, and really see how hard it is on you, as well as you use that term, loving on each other, like the support that the people who are engaged in this are also the people who are most impacted by the challenging circumstances of not having access to childcare. So it's not easy for anyone involved to be doing this. How did you guys deal with the ups and downs when that first ballot initiative didn't pass? I mean, obviously you're a very inspirational speaker, but what would you say you know keeps everyone going, and how did you handle those types of setbacks?
I really love that question. So, you know, inspirational speaker or not, the practice of organizing is an arduous one. I cannot think of a less glamorous, I can think of less glamorous jobs, but I'm just gonna say, I say that because the way that organizing is portrayed in, like, pop culture and media, and I know folks who are organizers will really understand this in filming. I mean, people think, you know, the March on Selma, and, you know, these, like, really, or even BLM uprisings, and, you know, we think about these really beautiful, amazing moments. But I am going to tell everyone right now a very big secret. It is so not fun, like, on a day-to-day basis. But that work, that day-to-day work, you know, calling people, convening meetings, meeting in people's houses, meeting people at bus stops. You know, you have to be, even, you know, being a great speaker is wonderful. Being a charismatic personality is wonderful. And really what it takes, in my opinion, is a commitment to organizing as a process and a method to build relationships. And that work is, like I said, arduous. It is incremental. It's something that builds over time, and it takes time. So the way that we got ourselves through these ups and moments, these up and down moments, is by again, painstakingly, asking people questions, asking people to take action and do things that they may not be comfortable with doing, staying till 10, 11 o'clock talking to parents, and building a community of parents who, like I said, loved on each other. So it is about the relationship building that happens between the parent leaders within the context of whatever activities we're doing to build people's leadership skills. That's really what it is that you have. It's not Clarissa experiencing these things, even though the film is about that. It is that we have now spent 7 years with each other, being with each other, right? Living through birthdays, kids' birthdays, living through problems at our children's childcare and schools, living through life with each other in these ways that I think can be hard to quantify to funders. It can be hard to explain to people who aren't organizers. You really live with a group of people. So that's how you get through these challenging moments. The really boring ones, which I'm telling you, 80% of it is boring until it all comes together in a campaign and you're like, oh my gosh, and then you'll never stop doing it. You'll never stop organizing people. So.
Amy, you were a great partner to the movement throughout this, and I would love to have you jump in and share about what that took and what you learned from the process.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I just have to thank Clarissa and Tamara for the film and everyone who worked on it. It really is a love letter to organizing, and I went through it and have like copious notes. Like you could use it to teach a masterclass on organizing, which is beautiful. And as a funder, I would say in reflecting and watching kind of how the story is told, what comes to me was really our capacity for risk and our appetite for risk taking. Because you see in the film, first of all, Clarissa taking a massive risk in allowing herself to be followed and filmed in her life in this way. You see the leaders of Parent Voices Oakland taking massive risk in taking on a campaign that, if any of you have ever run or been part of essentially a political campaign, this is a huge, huge undertaking. Massive risk for an organization, particularly an organization with PVO at the time, right? That was relatively young, right, in its organizational development process. And so when I think of this as a funder, my question to myself and to my colleagues is, how are we meeting the risk of community? Like, what is the commensurate risk that we need to take as funders to come side by side with community? Risk is not something that's often embraced in philanthropic spaces. And I think to be a true partner to organizing, it has to be a constant part of our dialogue. So for EBCF, I think, when PVO and the leaders there kind of made it clear they were going to run a ballot initiative, it set off a chain of kind of risk assessments and decisions that we made as funders. One, to completely step out of like a traditional community foundation model and maximize everything we could do as a public charity in terms of funding direct lobbying and C4 work. We set up a pooled fund that was a collaboration between private foundations and public foundations called the Early Childhood Progress Fund that allows us to fund both C3 and C4 dollars. Private foundations had to take risks. Several of you on this call took risks with us to participate in that fund. We had to take risks in terms of revamping and relearning a lot of our grant making processes in order to be able to do this work. We had to take the risk to celebrate losing. Losing is great. losing is awesome. Losing is part of the work of organizing. And I will say the one-to-one I had with Clarissa after the initiative lost the first time was one of the most profound organizing one-to-ones I've ever had. You know, Tamara referenced the coffee shop. You know, I think we kind of took up residence in a corner of our local spot and talked for 2 to 3 hours about what it meant to lose and what it was going to take to build the power to win. Another piece is to fund, a risk for us is to fund base building as an end in and of itself. Like a lot of people think of base building and organizing as a means to an end. It is an end in and of itself. And I would say for funders that we're not funding power building if we're not funding base building. There's a lot of different types of power building out there. Clarissa is very explicit throughout the film about what it takes to fund a base of leaders, to grow a base of leaders. And that is the root of all organizing. I would say we took massive risk in terms of really living into trust-based philanthropy beyond kind of the basics, right? And so what does it mean as a foundation to be led by, explicitly led by, and celebrating the work of Black women, and where we put our money informed by that power analysis and tactics, even if we disagree? That's a big thing for a funder, to potentially disagree and still say, we are here to be a tool for your power, for your strategy, for your brilliance, and the long-term commitments that it means to be in partnership with PVO. I mean, I think we did not start funding PVO at the beginning of this, not until 2017, but we're in it for the long haul. And we're in it for the long haul, both in terms of amount of years, but also a growing pot of resources. Like, we cannot give the same amount of money every year and think that an organization is going to be able to do more and more with it. There's so much I could share in this about this experience, but I think going back to that relationship, authentic relationship, strategizing with each other, being vulnerable as a funder, and allowing our grantee partners in to talk about how we move the power of our own institution beyond just dollars, is a massive commitment for us, and one of the ways I think we need to show up for movement partners.
Great. That's some great lessons there. And I really like what you said. You basically said a lot about embodying the idea of trust-based philanthropy, which is sort of this idea that's going around, but it's more than words. To really put it into action, you really have to do things like support a group. And even though you might not totally agree sometimes, but trust that they know what they're doing and go along. Wow. Okay. So I want to turn it back to the idea of power building for the movement. And Clarissa, your work freed up $3 billion for Alameda County. We need billions and billions of dollars across the country to really take the burden off parents and the people that work in childcare, who are currently subsidizing basically childcare for everybody because we don't have enough public dollars into the system. We came really close at the federal level in the last year or so, but didn't get it all the way. But there's now a national movement, as you said at the end of the film. There's thousands of parents and providers and organizing around the country. So the childcare system needs a permanent solution. So what comes next? What gives you hope for this movement going forward?
I think what gives me hope is two things. One, elected officials, at least first of all, the conversation about the local informing state informing federal, and really understanding how much good work, good leadership is developed locally, and how much modeling we can actually do, what lessons we can learn policy-wise at the local level that can help inform a federal strategy. I think that's the first thing. And then the second, is really, of course, continuing to organize and develop those relationships and leaders, and celebrating our wins, right? I think a permanent, I don't know what the permanent solution is to childcare overall, or care work overall. I think, childcare we have a lot of tensions between, people seeing childcare solely as an educational experience for young learners, while others are understanding the social services aspect of this, and then figuring out how we deal with race and gender in all of those. I think we have, but I think that whatever model we use in terms of our delivery system, right, and how to make sure that families have the best access, the best, quality of care that is within their definition of quality as well, that they're co-creating systems and that they have input and are heard in terms of the creation of those systems, is really understanding that we are tasked with being inclusive in policy making at the federal level of families, and not just utilizing their stories, which has a history of being extractive, and that's not how we win, right? We don't win that way. We don't win when there's other people dreaming up what systems should look like without the real buy-in and imagination and experience of our communities and those that have been impacted. They really are the best. We are the best to inform the way that systems are configured and how these policies actually have meaning in our lives. And so I believe that, and that's going to be, that's not a static thing. That's not a thing that we're going to, that we end up at. It's, I think, a process that we develop that is more democratic, and that really centers how communities build power. Being in, I'll say it again, really celebrating our wins. That's something that I struggle with because there's so much work to be done, but we've made a lot of progress in childcare over the last 40 years. So when I look at what our movement is like, the people in leadership now versus maybe even 10 years ago, I have a lot of hope.
Yeah, I'll second that. We also have this recent, just in the beginning of November, we had a big win in New Mexico from one of making a constitutional right to early care and education in New Mexico and funding it through the land grant. It is so exciting. So I think the momentum is growing, and people like you really are part of what's inspiring about it. And thank you again for being here. So what do you want foundations to know based on all the experiences that you guys collectively had in the process? Clarissa doing the organizing, Amy being a good partner, Tamara making a film, really co-creating a message with Clarissa. I'm just curious to know, we have a lot of foundations on the line here. What do you think they most need to hear?
Tamara, why don't you go, or Amy? I've talked a lot.
Well, I'm going to pick on, okay, go ahead. Great. We have a volunteer.
I was going to say maybe Amy should start, but I'll go ahead. I mean, I'm a documentary filmmaker. I'm a professor, I'm a parent, and I've always been an activist. I mean, a lot of my colleagues just make films and walk away, but it's been important to me as a storyteller that my films do good work in the world. My first two films were more focused on the journey home from incarceration and did amazing work with campaigns across the country, getting the vote back, different things. And I see, when Clarissa and I came together to make this film, we knew that there was an opportunity both to lift up the folks that are doing the work across the country, and also broaden awareness and understanding, and perhaps inspire others to get into organizing themselves or to support the organizing efforts that are happening. And that's a big part of our impact campaign, is for this film to become an organizing tool And so I guess that's the big thing that I would love for people to hear, both for this film and for other films that are doing work in this space or any space. This is some of the things that we've heard at events, you know, beyond lots of thank yous, always starting with lots of thank yous for Clarissa, is that, you know, that the film brings hope, and also that it alleviates some of the fatigue of having to retell your stories. So the film uplifts both the organizing in the work, but also, you know, helps bring this broader attention to the impact that not having childcare in this intersection between housing. There's so many intersections. What it is to be a teacher that is also impacted by childcare and housing and food costs. And so on top of that, I think right here, this is amazing, being able to share this with funders who are supporting the organizing. So I would like you to think about, how can you use this film? How can this film be an organizing tool for the people that you support, and to help uplift some of your goals as a funder and as you know, as someone who's interested in supporting childcare, early education, and really, you know, these basic human rights for all families, for everyone. So
Thank you. And we will again mention that as a partner with the movement and with exactly what you just mentioned, the idea that this can be something that people screen, funders, if you're interested, you could take it and screen it in your community, have some conversations at the local level, and really, you know, do some education and maybe build some new networks in your communities around this kind of work. Amy, you look like you're ready to jump in.
I could just offer two things. One is, all organizing happens locally. You know, you heard the adage, like all politics are local. We cannot have impact and change on a regional, statewide, or national level unless we are fully resourcing the organizing that's happening in local communities. Everything builds out of that. And so sometimes it's hard as a funder if we sit in different arenas, right, to figure out how to get into local relationship. And I think that's one piece that we can be of resource to each other, right, is finding ways to resource really hyper local power building work that will scaffold. I think that's part of also understanding kind of how power building work kind of functions. The other thing that I want to just lift up in terms of the film, because I saw it all throughout the film. Some of you referenced Clarissa as a great speaker, which she is. She's a phenomenal speaker. But I think one of the key kind of natural competencies of an organizer is meaning making, is taking an experience and interpreting it in real time with people about what just happened, what's going to change, what's the outcome of that, how do we pivot based on that experience, et cetera, right? She does it so seamlessly over and over and over again, takes these very unique moments and weaves them into making meaning for parents and caregivers around how it connects to their broader goals. And I think that's what the film does too, is it's a meaning-making tool of an experience of a person and an organization into these bigger, broader lessons about a movement centering families and children. And for EBCF, I know that's how we will use it with our donors. For example, we do a lot of donor organizing, kind of beyond donor education, but really involving donors in a movement mentality and mindset. And we embrace that meaning making as part of our role. And this will be a massive tool for that.
Thank you. I'm glad you said that because that also brings up a buzzword that we talk about a lot in philanthropy, and this is how folks really do it on the ground, which is shifting the narrative and really being able to place things in context and also help people feel more connected in the process. Clarissa's going to get the last word to my question about what we want funders to hear. But funders, you're going to get your chance to ask questions. So while Clarissa's talking, feel free to put things in the chat or get ready to raise your hand. Clarissa?
Yeah, I'll be brief. So I just echo everything that was said. And, you know, I think what I would love people to get from the film and utilize the film is to humanize the folks that are on the front lines of this work to as just as much as possible. One of the really, I was really fortunate to be co-creating this experience with Tamara, who just from the very beginning was like, this is about, you know, we're not going to do anything or film anything. There was an incredible amount of trust that was built. And so it didn't seem, however strange, I mean, I'm not going to say the experience wasn't strange. It was strange. You know, and it became, the strangeness of it became normalized over time, but there really was this, you know, I didn't feel as though I was, you know, just out in the world naked without support and love and care. And I think everyone deserves that. And that when we're asking community to show up and advocate and tell their stories, just to understand that, you know, a lot of what we've experienced is incredibly traumatic, and that, and I'm really excited to utilize this film as a tool to discuss how we tell our stories and how the narrative is shaped to both center community, but from a place of power, and from a place of power. That what our story is about is win or lose, we made these decisions. Win or lose, we built an organization together. This was not just Clarissa. I mean, you know, how could I? Win or lose, we decided what childcare in Alameda County should look like. And so what got us there is important. And I think that many folks stop there and want to hear about, like, well, what's wrong with systems? Where are the gaps? Rather than tap into our imagination. And so I would just invite funders to think of creative ways to tap into the imagination, and then, you know, utilize resource to build power when working with community.
Great, thank you. We have a question in from Kim Firth. Kim, do you want to come off mute and pose your question, or should I read it to everybody?
Yeah,
great,
well,
thank you.
Yeah, you bet. First, I just wanted to thank you so much, Clarissa. I loved the film. It was incredible. I just can't thank you enough for, you know, as we've talked about, you know, sharing so much of yourself and being vulnerable and teaching us so much. I mean, it's just so powerful. And so our advocates in New Hampshire were really interested in thinking about how we use the film to kick off our childcare campaign in our state. And so I just wondered if you could all just say a little bit more about, you know, your plans nationally for dissemination, and how a local municipality like New Hampshire might be able to partner to kick off our efforts.
Well, first I can say we're working with this incredible distribution company called Good Docs, which makes it really easy for you to get something like this. There's a 2-week link. You can do a public screening, but also share the link so that people have access to watch it separately, watch it again, you know, use it that way. And I just want to say that Good Docs is the founder. It's a women-owned company, and she started her career in early childhood education. So it feels like a really great partner. But we have a national impact campaign. We've been in festivals, prestigious festivals across the country. So we're always, if we have a festival, for example, we're in New York, we invited the Empire State Campaign for Childcare and other local organizations and groups together to come out, bring attention to the work that they're doing. So we're trying to make these connections as much as possible. So if you want to connect with me. I know Rachel can help make that connection, but the film itself is available easily through Good Docs. And the other thing that's coming up beyond this national impact campaign that we're working on, and again are available for partnership, is a national public television distribution on PBS. So that is where we are editing a 60-minute cut, and we'll be working on it will be going out on PBS in 2023. So that's something else we can talk about, and how it might connect into campaigns happening in your cities.
Yes, so thank you for that question, Kim. You're our dream questioner, because we are hoping that funders will have an opportunity to take this and screen it locally. We are working with the folks here to put together a toolkit to help funders think about that. You know, it's both around the advice of, you know, what kind of considerations you might want to have about what kind of issues come up, which actually I'd love to have our panel answer that question. You know, when this can really have people can have strong reactions, and so what to think about when you are putting together a screening for questions that might come up. And then also just logistical things, like if you're going to have parent organizers and local folks in the community, you're going to have to provide childcare and food and a stipend for any parents who speak and all those types of things. So we'll try to put that together and share it with folks. For some of the things that you've done already in terms of screenings, panelists, is there anything that you would add?
Well, one thing that I will say is that I'm working with Clarissa, if you want to answer this, because you have been central in helping us choose moderators as we have upcoming events. So for example, we will be opening the Human Rights Watch Film Festival in San Diego in February. And the great thing about some of these partnerships is we're able to really shape the panel and moderators. So we want to work with our partners to make sure that, again, we bring people in who are connected to grassroots work that's happening on the ground. So we like to have someone who's like Clarissa there. I'm available if needed, but also having parent leaders who are there locally. We just did something else in Virginia, the Virginia Film Festival, working with United Way, and I believe we're going back again in the new year with United Way to do some additional events. So, I mean, and we also have, which I believe Rachel will send out, there is a viewing guide that has like a breakdown of how to schedule, to plan out some questions and that you can use, and some of the suggestions on how to build out your event. So we're trying to make that, and we're building additional materials, but we've already got sort of the basics together to make it a little bit easier. And of course, we're also working on funding for our own impact, for the larger impact campaign. But what's great about what Rachel just mentioned is that there is, you're all funders, but there's also work to support screenings happening with grassroots groups across the country. Does that answer the question?
I think that was really comprehensive. I don't have anything to add other than the importance of just reiterating the importance of having local organizers on the ground wherever you are, and hopefully inviting organizations that are engaging in this work, which is one of the things that we found in the questions, the Q&A and the screenings, is just that, and this is the beautiful thing about it, is that organizers feel really heard and seen. We don't get to talk about organizing, especially see it on the screen in this way. And so we've had beautiful conversations, with family childcare providers, especially, who often, don't see the work that they're doing lifted up. So it's really been impactful to have grassroots organizations as included as part of the panel.
Thank you, panelists. Any other questions emerging from our participants? Give you one more chance to do that. So I don't see anything else coming up. So we just thank you again for being here, Clarissa, Amy, Tamara. We are so thrilled to have you yourself be part of this conversation, and we really do want to follow up and help with the toolkit and all those types of things that were mentioned on this call. And certainly if you want to, you can contact us, and we will also be circling back with impact funders to see if there's any more opportunity for partnering around this. You will get, as you sign off, a request to just answer some questions around what kind of interests you have so that we can follow up with you as quickly as possible. We all know that with the holidays and all that's going on, that people's minds are turning elsewhere, but we will be partners with you if you are interested in doing anything else, Kim and other folks on the call. Thank you again to this amazing panel. Rena, I think you wanted to show a final slide just to let people know about a really interesting conversation. One last webinar before the end of the year, December 15th. And this will be, we are partnering, ECFC is partnering with Grant Makers for Education and Trust for Learning on a session called Where Do We Go For Here on Anti-Racist Philanthropy in 2023 and Beyond. Thank you again to our amazing panelists, and I hope everyone here has a great day and goes off feeling hopeful about the future and the chance for really making transformational change for the care economy. Clarissa, do you have any one last thing to say? Because I know you always, I just love hearing you talk, so.
No, I just want to thank everybody for the space. And I could talk about organizing all day, but it's really thank you all for, if you are not already, which I think most of us are, being co-conspirators, because I do think that as we move into who even knows what coming out of a pandemic and a lot of political tensions, that looking at caregiving as a value and really a political strategy to advance the interests of women, of people of all genders, of folks, and really looking at moving our country away from some really scary rhetoric. I think caregiving is something that everyone can relate to, right? Healthcare, childcare, end-of-life care. I think there's a lot of possibility in that if we are, again, using our imagination. So yeah, thank you all for being here and being part of the movement.
Thank you. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye-bye.